Aloha everyone and welcome to another Electro Healing video by me. I'm your host, Kay Elmer, and in this video I've got a very special treat for anyone who's interested in Brown's gas. I had this great interview this morning with Ben from H2 Biohacker. He's an electrical engineer who's been basically tinkering around with Brown's gas for years and years, has it hooked up to his car, and then over the last year he's developed a Brown's gas inhalation generator that he's put on the market. The two of us have been chatting for about a year, about Brown's gas in general. He's part of our C60 community. And I finally convinced him to just, have a talk with me, and then let's record it for the rest of the community, because there's so much that this gentleman has learned about Brown's gas over time, especially in the world of health. So I just really wanted to bring this interview to you, and I really hope you enjoy it. And I just want to cover some of the things that we chatted about. As we talked a lot about Brown's gas generators, obviously, because I'm as a tinker terribly interested in the technology and how to do DIY it. But this is the new product that Ben has put on the market. He's a Brown's gas generator, and we talked a lot about the generator itself, and more importantly, we talked about how all of the things that he's learned over the last year experimenting, from making his own, trials and error. And especially if you own a Brown's gas generator, we talked a lot about the maintenance. If you use a Brown's gas generator, we talked a lot about usage, or otherwise known as dosage. Is it good to run it overnight? Is it good to do this or that? I mean, there's a lot in this interview that we covered in the area of maintaining your maintaining your generator, as well as how do you use it? What's the best way to take in Brown's gas for your health? Of course, obviously covered the properties of Brown's gas, and then we talked a lot, or not. We talked about the testimonies. We didn't even have time. When I say a lot, we didn't even have time. He could have went on for hours talking about what he's researched and learned, as well as his own customers, letting him know about how it's been affecting their lives. In fact, if you go to his website, he's actually spent a year researching everything he could find, and he's probably compiled one of the best sources of information, like a portal of data and studies and so forth, about how Brown's gas can help people. And so, in the area of Brown's gas is also hydrogen. And so for those of you who are familiar with molecular hydrogen, there's a lot of information about that and how good that is for your health. Because for those of you who don't know, Brown's gas is a very unique gas that when you inhale it or you bubble it into water, it has incredible health benefits. And it's a little bit different than just pure hydrogen, because Brown's gas is comprised of 2/3 hydrogen, 1/3 oxygen, and something very special called electrically expanded water. It's plasma water, and why that's so important. There's a study in the video that I touch on that kind of explains that. So I'm going to jump right into the interview now for you. I just want to say thank you for your time. I mean, it's a little bit long. We both kind of got chatty, but it was so informative. It was just we had to stop early because it was just so much information. It was so interesting to hear what he's learned. I mean, he's an engineer and he's been tinkering. And if there's anything I really get excited about is talking with fellow tinkers. So thank you so much. I just want to say mahalo. And I do have, just as FYI, for those of you that want to learn more about Brown's gas, clearly go to Ben's website, links in the video description below. You can find me at the Tinkers Academy. That's my blog. Just type in tinkers.academy in your URL window. Takes you right to my blog. I've got a section on Brown's gas there. Also, too, one of the things that Ben has done is he's created a Telegram chat group just to talk about Brown's gas, which is also known as HHO and molecular. So over the last few weeks, it's been getting a little bit more popular, and people are just chatting away about all sorts of different aspects of using gas for health, whether it's we're even getting into conversations about oxygen, hyperbaric chambers. Obviously a lot about Brown's gas, a lot about molecular hydrogen, and so forth. So, for anyone that's interested in this topic, please join the Telegram chat group. Link in the video description below. Read what other folks are saying and learn from others about how they're using it and so forth. So, definitely here's how you can learn more and how you can join. If you have questions about Brown's gas, this is right here. The HHO and H2 Experiences Telegram chat group is where you would want to go to learn more and ask questions. Don't ever hesitate to ask questions. These videos I make are connected to people behind them, and you just jump on the Telegram, ask a question, you'll find me. You'll find Ben and so forth. So we're there. We're real, and we're there to basically help you because we're just tinkers. And we learn, we experiment, we tinker, and we share, and then we do it all over again. So, again, I want to say thank you so much, Ben, for your time this morning. I know I kept you on the phone for a long time, but I'm so happy that we had this opportunity to chat. I just learned so much. I learned some new tinks that I want to try with my own generator. And thank you again, and thank you folks for watching. We really appreciate your time. So I hope you enjoy the interview and have a great day. Aloha. Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another video. And this one is a special one. I have the wonderful opportunity to interview Ben from H2 Biohacker, and he's the owner-operator of this website and this company, and he's created a Brown's gas generator called the H2 Genesys. We're gonna sit here and talk about his new Brown's gas generator, as well as the research he's done on Brown's gas, and all of the lessons learned about building one, running one, and then of course hearing from his customers about some amazing testimonies that people have had about Brown's gas. So this is a follow-on to Brown's gas videos I did last year, and I hope that you'll stick around and hear this incredible conversation. So let me just introduce Ben. He's the creator of the H2 Genesys. He's an electrical engineer by schooling and a biohacker out of a passion for optimal health and longevity. After spending a good bit of time as a programmer, entrepreneur, and businessman, Ben left the United States, moving to Costa Rica to create a sustainable farm where he continues to research and experiment with technologies that encompass freedom, sustainability, and alternative health. So good morning. Aloha, Ben. How are you doing today?
Hello, Mr. K. Elmer. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, good morning.
I also want to congratulate you and just there's some appreciation to everything you've done for the community. I mean, you're out there really exploring and researching and putting your findings out there. So you're a great asset to the rest of the community and world interested in these technologies as well.
Thanks.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like a scout ant. I just love learning. And man, when I first ran across Brown's gas, I was so stoked about. I mean, the first thing when I read the patent, right, and it mentioned atomic welding, and that just like boom, my brain. I couldn't suck up enough information about Brown's gas. And then I saw the video where Professor Brown was like waving the torch over his arm, and then he'd hit it on tungsten and melt the tungsten.
Right, I saw that.
And I was just trying to we all had physics, right, in class, and I couldn't figure out how that was happening. So I had to know more about it. And then that's, of course, I made some videos and yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's been a year since those videos came out, and I actually have had people in DM me about, hey, what's new and what have you been doing? So people are very interested in learning about Brown's gas and what's been happening in the last year. And honestly, it's what you've been doing is a huge chunk of advancing from last year to this year. So thanks for taking some time and let's talk about this stuff. So
right, yeah.
No I'm sorry. My first question really is just, could you kind of just explain, what was your motivation behind, developing the H2 Genesys Brown's gas generator?
Yeah, that's a good question, but I think I'm a lot like yourself. I'm just like, I get interested in something, in especially health, because I'm all about life is all about just being healthy and feeling your body and making that feeling of health last as long as possible. And I'm getting older nowadays. Just turned 50, so I'm like, well, this is the time you got to make a decision. Your body's not going to get any better. You got to start looking at what's going to keep you healthy, make you healthy, into the future. And you were talking about brown gas just a minute ago and how it kind of excited you and got your curiosity. I remember, I don't know, I was so long ago. I started out my early science career, like I said, in just experimenting with all kind of things. And I actually went into electrical engineering thinking I was going to create some special device that may solve the energy problem. So I was always into like free energy type devices, Tesla technology, and alternative, both energy and health. And so whenever something like that comes up, it kind of sparks my interest. But I mean, you've got to, it's the most difficult part in this whole, field is discernment. It's hard to know what's true and what's not. Because there's a lot of, flaky stuff around out there too, and people peddling stuff just to make money. And so a lot of the stuff I just toss out. I have a minor in physics also, so I kind of can weed through a lot of this stuff, knowing what's real and what's not. But like you said, I mean, there's stuff about the Brown's gas that really has captured people's attention. It's like, how does it do what it does, and what makes it special? Um, and so I first found out about that a long time ago. I mean, I was actually running my car on Brown's gas, HHO over 10 years ago, and seeing a little bit, experimenting with that and how it affected gas mileage. And then, more recently, I guess in the last several years, a few years, when another person in the community came out and started touting the C60, the carbon 60, which I know you've done videos on and you've talked about. And so once I got into the carbon 60, and you started making that myself as well, because it's not cheap either. And like, also living in Costa Rica, it's not easy to get some of these special supplements or strange substances or devices. Getting things in through customs sometimes and explaining what it is
Yeah.
will raise some red flags.
What is this brown powder?
Anything that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Black powder. What is this? And pieces for the hydrogen generators, like that thing may think it's a bomb. Who knows?
Yeah.
But so when the carbon 60 came out, it's an interesting story. Background. I felt the effects in reading all the studies and say, well, maybe this has something to do with longevity and in how it interacts with the mitochondria and how it works. But I wanted to know how it works. I mean, what's the working mechanism? That's why I always go, as a scientist and engineer, I'm like, well, what is the working mechanism? What makes it do what it does?
Right.
Because if we can understand that, then we can either get to the bottom line, what is going on, and then use those points and knowledge to either enhance it, make it better, or refine it to get more out of it. So with the carbon 60, we started making our own, like feel the effects, and then it came out that using hydrogen, well, at first it was like eating apples would create more hydrogen, and that would enhance the effects of carbon 60, right?
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yep. Just did a video about
Well,
that.
and basically it's really okay. Well, I mean, it's the fiber in your gut that the bacteria and probiotics in your gut eats as a byproduct of that, they release hydrogen. And so they're saying, well, you eat apples with the carbon 60 that'll produce hydrogen and that'll enhance the effects. And so my thinking was, well, what is the reaction between carbon 60 and hydrogen? And there's a whole lot more we can go into on the molecular side, the biophysical mechanics and stuff of how that body works, but which is all really interesting. But and so that led me to hydrogen. And so, okay, well, apples and eating lots of fiber isn't so practical all the times, and that's when they started coming up with these hydrogen generators, because Asia, a lot of countries there were have these hydrogen spas and hydrogen use in beauty situations, and some cosmetics and baths and foams. And so in Asia, and especially Japan, their culture is more ahead in this particular field. This with the Molecular Hydrogen Institute, which had the guy, what's his name,
Tyler LeBaron.
Right, exactly. He studied over there in Japan, where they're developing a lot of this technology, so they're way ahead of the rest of the world in what they're coming out with. And so how I evolved in my hydrogen journey, I ended up getting a little desktop bubbler. Sits on your desk, got a little rechargeable battery. It under pressure, it can make 1.2 parts per million hydrogen concentrated water with just hydrogen. And I didn't notice really too much significant effects from that. And as I was researching, it was pretty expensive too. And so I do my carbon-16. I drank that, thinking that was going to help it or enhance it. And I didn't notice too much difference. But I was still reading studies on hydrogen and Brown's gas. I was, intrigued and I wanted more. And then it led me to studies on breathing it, inhaling it, and doing drinking the water in higher concentrations or more than what my little desktop bubbler can produce, right?
Yeah.
And so that led me to other machines that cost thousands of dollars. I'm like, I can't justify spending thousands of dollars on that, much less get it into the country and through customs, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, put that on hold for now. But then at the time, I thought, well, I've got a few of these devices I've been putting both in my cars and friends' cars around here. The HHO, dry cell systems hook up to your car to make your car run more efficiently with hydrogen. So I could just hook up that and breathe it, but I was questioning, well, I wasn't sure if that was kosher as far as health is concerned. All these machines were producing pure hydrogen out there that were for sales. Like, can we be using or breathing this Brown's gas? Is it good or better? But I wasn't at the point where I had to really research and find it. And I think when I finally came across other people breathing Brown's gas and making reports, and then I saw your video as well, which is also, I think, as soon as I saw yours, that was like the clincher. Your first video on Brown's gas. I said, I know I've been dealing with this stuff for so many years. I know all about it. I know how to make it. Have made it. Got it outside of my car. So I researched a little bit more, and then that led me to building my own machine for health purposes and breathing it and drinking it. So that was like kind of a
So that
long
machine was
story,
the
but
actual.
that's
I'm sorry. Was so the first one that you made was like this little desktop, but then the second one that you made was this guy right here, the H2 Genesys.
right. Looking around at other, commercial retail kind of Brown's gas generators using for welding, um, just like others have done, it's possible to take parts and pieces of that and make something that's more geared or tailored towards personal use, for one's health rather than welding. That ended up being kind of the easiest way to go to produce something of, I guess, both value and affordable.
In terms of the yeah, so just so did you find that the output of this larger generator would really tip the scale in terms of you could actually notice the differences from your original attempt?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I didn't notice too much from the water, so I was I guess set on like, oh, I need to. I'm seeing all these reports and these research study done on hydrogen, but I wasn't feeling it just yet. So once I got the machine and started breathing, for the first time, you do feel an effect. It's really subtle. Some say it's a lightheadedness, some say it's energy, some say it relaxes you. It really depends on the person what your initial reaction is. So as I started doing it, more and more, I did notice more, and I kind of before I started with this, I kind of laid off of the carbon-60. I just kind of stopped just because I didn't have any made at the time, and I'd run out and forgot to make some, or it was going to be a few weeks before I had a new batch ready. So, but what I noticed pretty quickly after doing this hydrogen, both inhaling and drinking the hydrogen bubble water, was that I started experiencing the same effects I was getting from the carbon-60. And I'm like, oh wow! It's one of the biggest things I noticed was dreams and sleep. I mean, that's my telltale sign to what's going on or that it's affecting me. Because once your energy is at a level and it's pretty steady, it takes a while for that to taper off. But the immediate effects for me were very vivid dreams. It seems like the hydrogen it works directly with mitochondria, and that's what going back to the carbon-60 and the hydrogen. What I've come to conclude is that the carbon-60 acts as a transport system or mechanism for getting the hydrogen into places where, say, the hydrogen wouldn't necessarily go. And even without the doing the extra hydrogen, the carbon-60 still transports whatever hydrogen is available to places inside the mitochondria and other parts of the cell where it's really needed and used. But without the carbon-60, if you have an overabundance or supplement with hydrogen, that gets into those places that the carbon-60 would be able to normally push it into. But you've got an overabundance of hydrogen, and my experience, you don't need as much, or maybe the carbon-60 at all. I mean, I stopped it. I'll do it again. I'll start up again just to use it what I've got and to experiment some more. But I was seeing enough effects just from the hydrogen that I kind of just started slacking off on the carbon-60 completely. But my dreams became so vivid, more lucid dreams, more colorful, more deep, and I'd have dreams that go from when I go to sleep to when I wake up. One big long dream would be like an adventure. I know they say with the carbon-60, don't take it before you go to sleep sometimes because it keeps you awake. But I look forward to doing a dose before bed sometimes because it's like I'm getting ready for an adventure.
Yeah.
Because I would be
I've actually,
lucid in my dreams lots of
yeah,
times, and everything's so bright and colorful.
you raise a really good point, because hydrogen is a super antioxidant along with C60. They definitely complement each other. They definitely both pass through the blood-brain barrier. And I'm just wondering, from your research, you're saying that you felt the same benefits with either, and so that they literally can be exchanged from your description. But then, the only question I would have is like, well, is there anywhere that hydrogen can go that C60 can't, and vice versa? Because one of the things, just on a side note, there, I've been studying fullerenes and water soluble C60, and it's real interesting with that one because you've got a C60 and a C60 derivative, right? But the derivative, because the derivative
Mm-hmm.
is can be transported by water, the studies show that it can go places where C60 cannot, because this C60 is usually a lipofullerene, so it's encased in fatty acids or lipids, and then you've got the fullerenol, which is water soluble. So that these two separate C60 and a derivative can go to different places in the body, which is really fascinating. So, side note aside, when
Right, that
you're
makes sense.
when you're
Yeah,
thinking
that makes sense. And
C60, you're right, versus hydrogen, do you think that maybe hydrogen can go to more places in the body? And that's because it's so much smaller.
I
I mean,
mean,
literally, it's just this
even
one. It's like what, 3 atoms
I mean,
versus 60 atoms, so it's way smaller than C60. Is that what you're thinking? Is that was something you thought about?
right. It's super small. I mean, hydrogen can easily diffuse through your skin and every cell in your body. So nothing really can hold it back. I mean, even metal can only hold it for a short period of time. I mean, when they store hydrogen, they store it, in metal containers. I think aluminum is one of the better ones to store it in.
Hmm.
But even then, it will eventually pass through cracks or diffuse through the metal over time. And your body is not made of metal. It's even more porous than
Yeah.
uh, metal for sure, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't see how it would not be able to pass through every membrane, cell,
Okay.
barrier in your body.
So we'll call it like H2 or
So, but
hydrogen super antioxidant. We'll just give it an extra super. Okay, cool.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not discounting the carbon-60.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No,
I
no.
still think the carbon-60 can maybe transport it and maybe keep it in a more stable form to get it to places that it may not be able to get on its own. Maybe hydrogen would react to something else or just get displaced more easily. Whereas if you're on like you know, a, a, a car or your transport system, it may be able to get it in other places. Like you're saying, both the oil soluble and the water soluble carbon-60, it still may have additional benefits, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Because, well, it's, because it gets caged, right? The hydrogen ions get caged inside the fullerene. And then, yeah, you're right. If there was just this big flood of hydrogen, then it would just be getting absorbed by all the radical oxygens and converted to water. And it may never get to the nth mile because it just gets converted to water all the way there. But then if it's encased in a fullerene, then the hydrogen ion can actually get there because it won't be absorbed, or it won't be, utilized all until it's delivered, because the cage doesn't let go of
Right.
the ion until it connects to whatever it's going to connect to. Then there's that electron transport. But yeah, that's really fascinating to think about. I really got. I don't know. Should look into that some more. So yeah, so let's talk. So going back to your generator, just because I'm sort of a gearhead. I'm kind of a clumsy, gearhead. I consider myself like I'm like the Homer in a nuke plant kind of thing, Homer Simpson in a nuke plant. So I know not to mess
Uh-huh.
with hazardous chemicals because then I would definitely hurt myself. But but I'm assuming because you're an engineer, you're way better at being a gearhead than me. But I'm just really interested in like what did you like when you were like putting your idea together to build the H2 Genesys, um, like what was your approach? Because one of the biggest things one of the biggest feedbacks that I got from that video was everybody wanted to try Brown's gas, but the price point was just so high,
Hmm.
and so they went onto eBay and they
Right, right.
started buying HHO torches. And then, of course, there's all these
Right,
safety warnings saying, "Hey, that's not designed for inhalation. It's designed to be a torch." So,
right, right.
like from a aspect of like, okay, did you actually modify a torch or did you build it from scratch? I mean, what was your approach? And then we'll get back into talking
Um,
about
it,
Brown's
it, it-
gas.
well, I started with just the plain torches and just playing with those and
Okay.
seeing what came out and measuring the gases, the quantity, and see if any of the electrolyte mixes were being pushed out and monitoring all different aspects of it. And because that's like the closest way, the cheapest, fastest, closest way I can start experimenting, right? Just to get one of the torches out there and seeing
Right.
what they
Yeah.
produce. Um, but what I quickly found out is that within a short period of time, running at full power, they heat up and start spitting out lots of uh, well, smells and gases and potentially the electrolyte mix, which is the sodium hydroxide. So running just without something to control the power on it, you can quickly get yourself into trouble. Um, it's yeah, definitely not recommended. Because I noticed that right away that you can see different vapors coming out, smell different, just everything about it. And I noticed the temperature was running really hot. And when you've got the temperature really hot, the water heats up, more water vapor escapes. I mean, a lot. I'd say 5 to 10 times more than if you run it on a lower sustainable power level. That's really more optimal for the body anyway, and what
Hmm.
the hydrogen it would be producing. But what most of these generators run at 100% power, it really heats up the water. The water vapor carries out the sodium hydroxide, and that'll just get into your, lines and air, and you'll be breathing it in no time, and bubble it into your water, and it'll be right back in your water that you'll be drinking. I mean, little trace amounts probably won't hurt you, but if you do that consistently over time, probably not the best thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So well, let's, I don't know how deep we want to get into it for everybody, but let's say, you go get a torch, one of these like $200 eBay, HHO torches, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
how much, I mean, like how many different things do you have to do to it to make it safe? Because a lot of folks are actually, I've seen
Well, the
pictures
biggest.
where people are using them,
Mhm.
and literally just bubbling right off the end of the torch outlet, and I just keep thinking, man,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
dangerous. So like
yeah, I
what
mean, I
kind
guess
of
you
stuff?
you could do that, like I said, but like I said, it's going to be throwing out a lot of the sodium hydroxide, and you're going
Yeah,
to be breathing that at one point in
right.
no time at all. So the biggest modification you would have to do is find a way to modulate the power,
Ah,
and that's what we and other people have done, put a control panel in place. But it's more than just a control panel, because the control panel is um, for controlling other power electronics that need to be installed too. I know some people that just find this power panel and put it in, slap it in there, thinking it'll work, but it doesn't. There's a lot more power electronics involved because you're dealing with much higher, super high currents in higher voltages,
hmm.
and you need special, electronics to do that.
Okay. So
So with, I
okay.
mean, my electrical engineering background and experience with that and tinkering and building circuits and stuff like that, I mean, helped. I mean, without that, I probably would not have been able to do it.
Okay. So inside yours, is there just one tank or two tanks? Like you have a reservoir tank?
There's just one tank.
One tank. Okay.
I've experimented with models where we can put an extra reservoir in there,
Yeah.
and also monitoring the low and high water levels in there. But I mean, it's a good bit of extra work. And most people, it's not necessary, I found.
Okay. Yeah, because I just we'll mention the link and everything later, folks. About there's Ben started a HHO and H2, or Brown's gas and hydrogen chat group on Telegram, and we've been kind of a couple months ago, and we've been kind of talking to each other. But I think I was reading. I'm one of the admins, and I was reading a discussion about the amp meter and what you discovered using the amp meter as a way to understand the output, right? And so I noticed that obviously the
Right.
H2 Genesys has an amp meter here. So could you kind of talk about that and kind of like what's the significance of the power regulation in terms of HHO output, right? And then one of my big concerns is like how fast do you burn the water up in terms of having to keep it full? Because I was just chatting in the chat group with Ben this last week about I'm having a huge problem understanding how much water's in my tanks, because I've got a different model that's got a little ball in this section right here, and that ball is like permanently crusted
Right.
in and it's stuck. So I can't tell what my water level is. And so it's a major pain because if I put in too much, I go into an overfill and then I've got to take this off, and it's a pain. So I don't want to go over, but I don't want to go under, and I have no way to tell. So I reached out to Ben for
Right.
help.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm
That's a
like,
difficult
help, Ben,
position
how
to
do I
be in
figure it
there.
out? So anyway, yeah. So let's talk about the amp meter because I think you had some really interesting comments in the chat group about why you went with having, just an amp meter there.
Yeah, I mean that helps a lot in debugging because you can think the unit is producing gas or it's making bubbles, but um, it may not be working optimally. So if you're seeing how much power it's drawing, which is directly correlated with the amount of amps it's drawing, it's a better reference as to what's really going on. Is it really working? That analog amp meter that it comes with right now, they're not the most accurate. They vary a little bit, but it is accurate in day to day. It's not let's say one may be slightly different than the other. One amp meter may be slightly different than another, but whatever they register, if you see it working at one level, it's going to work. It's going to register the same day in and day out, unless something goes wrong with your machine. But after to electrolyze water, to split up the hydrogen and the oxygen atoms in water molecule, you need to push a certain amount of current through there. And once anything over that current basically is directly converted from electricity into splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen. There's like almost a direct correlation. So once you've got enough electrolyte solution mixture in here, the sodium hydroxide in this case, once you're in a certain range of not too much and not too little, the amount of gas you produce is linearly proportional to the amount of current you push through it. Make sense?
Yeah.
So the amp meter, assuming you've put in,
right.
So many grams of the lye mixture, sodium hydroxide, into the system, is if you put in inside that range, that low and high range, you push a certain amount of current in there, you're going to be and reduce or raise your power level. The amount of gas is linearly proportionate to. So if you raise it, 1, 2, 3, microamps or currents or percent, your gas production is going to go up linearly. So that's also interesting when you're watching the amps. It's directly correlated to the amount of gas being produced.
Okay, and so that kind of that correlates to the duty cycle then, basically. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because the duty cycle is it's pulsing on and off, and if there's voltage there, there's current being generated.
Okay.
So
Okay.
The duty cycle is directly correlated with the amount of voltage and the amps and the gas.
And so, I'm looking at your model, and I haven't acquired one yet. I'm planning to. But this right here, like your little dashboard, is so as I understand it, there's no timer, but there's the fixture there. It does two things. It allows you to up and down the duty cycle, which is the gas production, right?
Right.
And then it also you also have a frequency generator in there. You can impart frequency into the water. Is that
Right. The left side is the frequency adjustment,
okay?
and which goes from
Okay.
1 to 150,000 hertz, and the right side is the duty cycle, which is how the length of the pulse
Okay.
um, that generates the the current.
Okay. All right. So, my next question, since we're talking about the Jenny, is I just want to let everybody know, like I've been like Ben in the last year, because he's been doing nothing but tinkering with how to build the ultimate Brown's gas generator, has kind of discovered, and he's given me some tips about how to maintain it. And so I just kind of wanted like what, like I guess, what would be your best tips at this point to maintain? I think one of the, and I'll just let me lead off with your recommendation to dump the whole tank after, I think it was like I guess like 120 hours or something, if or I don't know what how like
Right.
what's your flush cycle, and then what's your maintenance? Because I tried it your way this last flush on mine, and it was amazing how much better it performed following your advice. So what would, like, what's your
Yeah,
recommendation?
I say I say between 100 and 200 hours use max.
Yeah,
Flush out the tank, just dump out whatever water
pumping,
electrolyte
right?
mix is
Yeah.
in there. I like to pour it into a glass jar where I can actually see the color and consistency of it. Usually comes out, if this is the first time you're cleaning it, it'll come out gray, dark, and with a lot of, like, it seems like carbon in there. And if you let it sit or settle, all the carbon will usually float down to the bottom, settle
Right.
on the bottom, and you'll usually be left with crystal clear water. I mean, it should be crystal clear. Sometimes it's an off color if your water you were putting in there was not completely pure, or you made a mistake and put in not pure water one time. I've had experiences before where the water is slightly tinted. It could be like a yellow or a tan or a
Yeah,
beige
that's how
tint,
mine
very
was.
subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you let it settle and it doesn't come back crystal clear, I would definitely throw it out, because that
Okay.
means there's some impurities in that
Right.
water that cannot be identified, and it's not worth putting it back in there.
Okay. So
Because on units that
now,
I've run for a long time, the water, and flushed out, once or twice or whatever, maybe throwing the water out. I mean, the water comes out crystal clear in the future. So
okay.
that's what you should be looking at. So
All
that's a
right.
telltale sign whether you should be throwing it out or
Mhm.
reusing it.
Okay. So if you put in distilled water with lye, sodium hydroxide, you should get the first flush. There's going to be carbon. I've seen that. I just let it sit, and 24 hours later, the bottom of the Pyrex thing has just got this carbon. So, but that's the concept. But
Right.
that's coming from the plates, right? I mean, like, because I know that I had a
Right.
chat
Right.
once with Steve over at H2 Light, or Hydrogen for Health, and he was talking about the impurities you're going to see coming out of your machine are coming from the plates, and it's the quality of the plates. So, like, can you describe that? I mean, because that's not anywhere else, right? It's just like, it's kind of the electrolysis process is just pulling off the outer layer of these plates, right? That's what basically is happening.
Right. Exactly. I'm familiar with this because I used an HHO system for my car, like 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
And part of the instructions with that is like run a few tanks of gas through it, well, gas meaning like run your car with a few tanks of gas, run electricity through the electrolyzer before you really clean it out and flush out all the impurities. But what happens is that even though it's made of stainless steel, there's still the oil from people's hands that were working with it to put it together.
Uh,
Carbon is usually used, a small percentage of carbon is used in making the steel to harden it up. But any of those atoms of, you say, carbon and other molecules or oils that were on the plates, those are going to be pulled off in the process of electrolysis, because you got a high potential electric field in there, and you're sending enough electricity to it to rip apart water molecules, right? So you're going to be ripping off
oh yeah.
atoms and different molecules off of these plates. And in a way that this running electricity through this steel, it cleans the plates
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
point where it'll rip off anything it can, and if it can't rip off anything any longer, nothing else will come off. So anything that's loose or dislodged or not really ingrained in the metal will dislodge itself, and if it's heavier like metal or carbon, it'll just float down to the bottom.
So would you recommend that like somebody who gets a brand new one, they should do like a couple of flushes, like after 50 hours twice, just to get all that impurities out, and then they can go up to running it 100 hours at a time? Because I
If you do it at 50 hours, I would do another flush at another, 100 or 200
okay,
hours. I
all
think
right,
that's almost a little soon.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
say wait at least 100 and no more than 200, and then you can get away with just doing one flush.
okay,
But I mean, even before we send the machines out, we run them for a while. We rinse them and I would flush them out like probably 3 or 4 times.
oh,
First
okay,
with just regular water. We do 3 or 4 flushes with regular water, run them a little bit, and then finally with distilled water and flush that out.
oh, okay.
Um,
So yours
because
kind of
I know with other generators, people have bought from other manufacturers that make them. They don't pre-wash or clean them, and as a
yeah,
result, I noticed this with some of the ones I got, just the just straight out torch generators I was just buying and experiment with them. They will foam up so quick and right away. I don't know if you've experienced that before. If there are impurities in
yeah,
the water,
yeah,
the just like you put soap in the water to make bubbles, those impurities, they're clumping together and they won't let the air completely escape. They kind of, um, just stick together, like
right.
just like soap would.
Yeah,
So
I've
that just tells you
actually
there's a
seen
lot of
that.
impurities in their
Mhm,
oil,
right. I've
and
actually
so
had,
that's another.
yeah, I've had 6 different
Yeah,
machines, and one of them poured out purple mud,
wow,
literally purple mud,
what?
and I was like
Yeah,
shocked. It was
that's not
purple. It
good at
was
all. I
purple
mean
black,
that
but it was wild, man.
I
After
mean in
like
our
my first
case,
flush, it,
because I mean some of the machines and cells that come from China, they may be sitting in warehouses for years and years,
right?
and if they get a little bit of dampness and humidity in it, they'll start rusting and corroding into the parts that are not completely say stainless steel, or even if you weld stainless steel, the new joints are still prone to rust and corrosion.
Okay.
Um, and so some of these manufacturers that may convert some of the torch generators to hydrogen for health machines, they may not thoroughly clean out, run machines, thoroughly clean them out, wash them out to prevent this from foaming. I mean, none of our clients have experienced foaming up to this point. I think because we do spend so much time washing them and cleaning them out. That's part of our process and getting them ready. Because I don't want
Yeah.
them foaming up,
Yeah, I've had one that foamed up too.
and that's another reason why
One of
we
my
have
6
them.
foamed up. The other one,
Yeah,
it's been an experience. That's why, yeah, it's been a journey. But but yeah, that's interesting that you're hitting on everything I've ever seen. And let's talk about like the double bubbler here. I mean, um, because one of the recommendations from another manufacturer is that only one bubbler is necessary, but I've discovered that over time, like I'll see discoloration in one of my bubblers, and I'll see a second bubbler start picking it up. I
hmm
know you're technically supposed to empty these things out every 4 hours, but we're humans; nobody follows the directions. So just
right,
as
yeah,
for me, I like to
exactly.
say, I, I'm a man. I don't follow directions. I admit it. And so what happens? So I always
Right. Well, I
have a
mean,
double bubble. This is what I configured mine with 2, and then I drink out of the third,
uh,
which is a quantum energy
right.
bottle. So you find that it's
Yeah,
necessary to
exactly.
have 2. It's best to have 2, or what's your recommendation
Well,
from all your research?
in most, I mean, if you wanted to dump it out every one, if you have one and want to dump it out after every few hours, you're probably fine. But
Yeah,
like you and me and most other men, I guess, I don't want to do
yeah, it's
that.
a pain in the
I'm lazy
yeah,
too. So,
yeah. Because my thing
so
is
two
I
having
have
two
yeah.
bottles.
Yeah, I have mine sitting next to my desk at work. I work from home, and I'm on it like literally 8 hours a day. So I don't have time to be messing with my Jenny in the middle of my workday. So
Right.
I do it every couple of days. But
So
yeah,
yeah,
I hear you.
yeah, exactly. So having two gives you much longer runtime without having to intervene in it. And we've done experiments here where we see how long we can let it run, how many hours we can go before the first bubbler starts showing signs of the alkalinity increasing. And usually, I mean, it's very slight, but it'll start going up after 3 or 4 days, and definitely after a week, you can notice something slight. Um, but even after 2 weeks, it's hard to find any pH increase in the second bubbler. So you've got a lot of extra time built in if you've got two bubblers. So I mean, it's so easy and inexpensive to add another one. So it's like, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
it's more practical.
You know, you just hit on a really good point. I think one of the folks in our chat was talking about using a ppm meter to measure how much lye was getting leached into her bubbler slash, drinking container. And so, but you're saying, but you just
Hmm.
mentioned using pH. So, would it be good advice for people using any kind of Brown's gas generator that if you're worried about what's leaching out into your water, that let's say this is your drinking container here
Hmm.
with the spigot, that you could use a ppH or a ppm to measure, right? That if anything is leaching through your
Right,
bubblers, right? Which would be better, the
right,
pH
right.
or the ppm or both? What do you recommend?
ppm is parts per million, but parts per million of what are you measuring?
Yeah, that's the
I
thing.
mean, I
If you
mean, you're talking
start
about
with
total
distilled,
dissolved solids.
yeah, I'm thinking if you start with distilled water and you run your bubbler into,
Right, right.
you run the bubbler for like I don't know 10 minutes, you should be able to measure the ppm increase in the container. But then you'd have to have a
Right,
benchmark,
right.
right?
I don't. Well, this you bring up another good point to mention. I don't use distilled water in either of the bubblers.
Yeah,
Like I think I've mentioned before in chats to you that
yeah,
um, impurities do come out of the system just following up the water vapor. It may just cling to water vapor, whether it's the sodium hydroxide or other impurities. Who knows what's in there, right?
yeah,
It may come out in the water vapor and immediately condense into water into the first bubbler. So even if that's distilled water, you're still pouring back the impurities into the system if you want to do that. I
yeah.
mean, distilled water is cheap, and so is the sodium hydroxide. So I mean, why not throw that out there? Anything that comes out is impure, in my opinion. Anything that
Right,
comes out
right.
with the gas
Yeah,
is we should be throwing away.
that's
So
exactly what
I
I.
just put normal,
Yeah,
good filtered water into these two bubblers and just keep throwing it out. That's like that's a filter, right?
right.
I don't want to pour what's been filtered out back into the machine. I want to throw
Yeah,
that stuff out.
yeah, yeah. So I actually started taking your advice, and that's what I did my last flush. I actually noticed that at 100% duty
Hmm.
cycle, that the bubbles coming out are way faster, and there's more gas
Hmm.
production. So now I just use tap water in the bubblers. I only use distilled water inside the generator, and then right here where my
Right. Well, be
drinking
careful with
container.
tap water.
Can
Tap
you?
water may not be the best thing if it's got fluoride and chlorine and other chemicals. Who knows what's in there? I
Oh
would
no.
definitely use some kind of really good filtered water, reverse osmosis
Oh,
water, or
and these two
bottled
guys?
water,
Oh
something
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
not going to have any chemicals.
Yeah, yeah, filter. Yeah, it comes out of by Berkey. That's what I meant. Sorry. You good point. Good point.
Right, right. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that should be
people's
fine with
tap
it.
water is not good. Filter that stuff.
No, no, don't put that in there,
Yeah, I
please.
just, here's an interesting
Yeah,
point. In the city and county of Honolulu, we do not fluoride our water. We don't fluoridate. So the only thing in it is chlorine and whatever they use to clean the water. Even though that stuff is bad, but yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty nice that we don't have fluoride.
I mean,
But yeah, you're right. So filtered water in the
oxygen and
bubbler.
chlorine,
Yeah, filtered water in the bubblers,
oxygen and
distilled.
chlorine produce chlorine gas, and that's toxic,
Right,
right? Chlorine gas,
right. That's
get
why.
chlorine in the water,
Yeah, I got a
pumping
big Berkey.
O2 in there. I don't know. That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, I use big Berkeys. They filter that out, so that's awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so that works out. Yeah, I did have a question about stones. The bubbler stones. Um, I can't. I don't know if I don't. I don't seem to have enough pressure to get the gas to go through a steel stone. And you were saying that maybe it's plugged up or anything,
Mhm.
but it's just. What's your recommendation on steel stones versus stones? Bubbler stones. And like, what do you recommend is best? Because don't the stones
Yeah, I mean,
break up over time? Is that the problem with that? And that's why you want a metal one, or what's your opinion?
well, I mean, the whole idea of the stainless steel. I mean, just mentally, what you know about stainless steel pots and stainless steel, it's like, okay, well, it's healthy, it's clean, it's clear, right? It's metal. So you would think that it's a good thing, but uh, I've kept fish in aquariums all my life, so I've gone through lots of different air stones and experimenting with different air stones, and they all are prone to the same problem. Any little bitty impurities, and bacteria in the air touch your water, get in the hoses. Even when you're connecting the hoses, a little bitty bacteria in the air gets into the hose and it gets pushed through into the air stone, and they can start multiplying. And
Ah,
so, if not
okay.
um, gunk or gooiness, just plain bacteria scum can build up in there and just simply clog up the small pores on these air stones. So a stainless steel doesn't buy you anything. They say it can produce micro bubbles or smaller bubbles, but I mean, micro bubbles. If you want to really see micro bubbles, look at what they call protein skimmers on the internet. It's a pump, uses like a little venturi system, a suction system, and it spins around in a vortex and produces really micro bubbles. Micro bubbles or nano bubbles
Right.
will stay suspended in the water. That's what you really want. These air stones, no matter what size they say they produce, if you don't see the water changing to a cloudy white, which would indicate there's lots of micro nano bubbles in there, then you're not producing small micro nano bubbles. If the bubbles just float up to the top and pop like normal bubbles, and the water stays crystal clear, other than that, it's just as good as any normal air stone. Makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. You raised.
you're better off
Yeah, okay.
saving your money on like I don't know how much the stainless steel air stones cost, but they're
They're like
not cheap.
20
You're
bucks.
better off buying 10, 20. Well, that's ridiculous. I think we get them for like 50 cents or something like that, 20, 50 cents. So you can buy, I mean, replace them every week. Your
Yeah.
stainless steel
Right.
air stone does not, the claim is it makes micro bubbles or smaller bubbles, but that's not the case. That's not how you make smaller bubbles. So that points out the window.
Oh,
The
okay.
second point is it'll get clogged. The second point is that it'll get clogged up just as fast as a regular blue, air stone will get clogged
Okay.
up, which after a while, just throw them out and replace them. And if they start breaking down or getting scummy, they'll get you can feel they'll get slimy after a while. Just like in an aquarium. I mean, so
Yeah.
unless you're washing and scrubbing them off, they still got bacteria, growing on them, and they'll get slimy. So I just throw them out after a while. They'll either disintegrate or throw them out.
Do you really
So
even
you're better off replacing them with something fresh.
do you even really need a stone, or could you just because in my bubblers, my filter, the two on the side, I don't have any stones. I just bubble it right out of the tube. But would you
Right.
really
Yeah. In
really
those
need to have a
cases, it's
stone in like in the drinking container? I mean, is
in
stones
those.
necessary throughout the system?
Well, the stones do increase. Well, they
They
create
do.
more bubbles,
All
smaller
right.
bubbles.
Okay. All right.
If you did not have the stone, you would have larger bubbles just bubbling up, and there's less surface area there. The idea is you want lots of smaller bubbles with more surface area, and the more surface area you have of bubbles, then
okay.
it's more likely for the hydrogen, oxygen, and good stuff, electrons to diffuse into water or stick to other water molecules.
Okay.
So the more surface contact you have with the air, between the water and the air, the better for um, getting the hydrogen to dissolve faster into the water.
Okay. So the optimal infusion of the Brown's gas into your bubbled water is using, like let's say using a stone, a regular old aquarium stone works fine. Replace it frequently because they can get contaminated, right? But you definitely need to use
Right.
stone. And then what would be your process for that? What's your formula for the optimal saturation of Brown's gas in a bubbler? Is it like I think I've quoted some of the other manufacturers are saying uh, 10 minutes per liter at 100% duty cycle. Is that sort of your formula as well, or what you've discovered?
Um, yeah, what I've kind of discovered, or not say discovered, but just paying attention and noticing and just experimenting, right? It doesn't make that much difference.
Okay.
Whether you have it on 50% or 100% in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, usually after 10 minutes, it's as good as it's going to be.
Okay.
In 50% or 100% duty cycle, it doesn't make too much of a difference. I mean, it's hard to tell the difference in bubbles coming
Okay.
up, and it's not going to produce an overabundance to make it that much
Right.
better, that much quicker.
How about
So,
like? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
anywhere between, I mean, I wouldn't even do it at 100% unless the machine is, cold to start with, because if it's hot, you're going to start throwing out, I mean, it's not that big a deal, but it may start overheating and throwing out extra water vapors and other contaminants. So the idea is to keep it, running at a lower temperature and cooler for the most part.
Ah, okay. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good tip. Okay. So, yeah, okay. And then how long did you find, and when your research shows, how long will the gas stay in the water before it dissipates? Like, what's its half-life?
Um, that's something, in my opinion, you really shouldn't pay attention to, because you really
Oh.
should be just drinking it right when you turn it off, right?
Yeah, don't carry it
You
around
should
all
not
day
be
in
letting it
water
lay
bottle.
around.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
No. I mean,
Yeah,
so that should be like a pointless question to ask, or
okay.
it's like,
No, 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 that's good.
okay, it's bubbling, you turn it off and you drink it. That's it.
Okay. So that there you
Because
go, folks.
the
Drink
fact that it
drink the
has
water.
a really short
Right there.
half-life, yeah, just drink it.
Yeah, yeah.
Forget about the half-life. It has one,
Yeah, okay.
and it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't last too long.
Yeah, because I know that like I used to do those hydrogen tablets before I got a Jenny, and man, you had to drink that thing
Mhm.
within like I think they recommend 20 minutes, but I was thinking, no, hydrogen, that's pretty long for
No, I
hydrogen.
mean, I would.
Yeah.
No. I
So
mean,
just
what's the
bubble it
point? You mean
and
the
then
point is
drink
getting the
it.
hydrogen.
Right. So
What do you want to?
bubble.
Yeah, I mean, I would even do the tablets before it 100% dissolves. If I think it's not going to like, you know,
Uh, yeah.
make me belch or burn a hole in my stomach, I'll drink it
Yeah.
right before it's dissolved, finished dissolving.
Yeah. I used to
Because
do
the whole
that,
point is
but
getting
then
the most hydrogen possible, right?
I used to do that. Then I'd get that little bit of undissolved, tablet in my mouth, and it just would taste
Right, exactly.
nasty. Well, hey, let's
Yeah,
chat
so it's a
about.
balance. You got to time it just
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Hey, let's chat about your, like questions in the chat. We had questions about dosage or usage, of Brown's gas, and so let's chat about that. I'm just going to throw some questions and issues that people had, and just what do what are your thoughts? What do you recommend about that? So basically, it's quote best practices for inhalation and drinking Brown's gas water. We just said about the recommendations for drinking the water. Drink it. Just drink it after it's made. But how about like
Yeah,
in terms
exactly.
of,
Don't wait.
but we just recently had an interesting chat. I think it was a week or so ago about diminishing return, right? Because we know that, and that
Uh-huh.
conversation came up with how long should people, like, what is the optimal length of time people should be doing inhalation?
Right.
Because there was folks that were doing it overnight, and that's
Right.
another subject. But just inhalation in general, you kind of mentioned that you discovered that there's kind of like the law of diminishing returns kicks in at a certain point. So can you comment on that?
Right. Yeah, I mean the exact numbers are to be debated, and that's what this is all about. We know hydrogen is not going to kill us, right? We can
Yeah.
do it night and day for 24 hours, and it's not going to hurt us. But myself and other clients, and other people just talking about this in a group, so we've noticed that after a certain point, so it may be like 8 hours, 10 hours, 16 hours a day, or whatever it may be, that you don't get any additional effects, and you may even actually get negative effects, or it may effects might start diminishing. Um, so, I mean, in general, what people recommend, I think, is I mean, this is what I say now too, is maybe 1 to 3 times a day. I mean, also variation is good. To It's okay to be late or to just do it once a day or 3 times a day or for a longer period one day and skip a day, because the effects in general seem to last, um, taper off over 3 4 days even. um, so if you skip one day, no big deal. But in general, I say use it or do a session 1 to 3 times a day, whether it be, you can it can vary. A session could be breathing or could be drinking water. And if you're breathing, it could be like 20 minutes to 2 or 3 hours, and do that 3 times a day, every day, and you're fine. If you get out of the routine, it's not going to hurt you, because there's a delayed effect. I mean, it has a lasting effect that slowly diminishes over a few days. But I can tell you, I've got one friend that does mixed martial arts. I mean, older guy, he's just 40s. I mean, he does it just for fun and sparring with other people that much younger than him. And he was really excited about trying this and to see how it would affect his performance and recovery. Because, oh man, I'm so sore. I can't keep up with these younger kids and all that. And so his first week using it, he noticed a huge increase in both energy, stamina, endurance, and also recovery. He's like, wow, this is great. It's incredible. So he started doing more of it. I don't know exactly, I didn't get the details or numbers, how much more he was doing, but he was doing a lot more than he had previously. And then he noticed he was more um, slower or lethargic, or he didn't have the same energy increase as he did previously. So when he cut back, um, the the energy, stamina, endurance, all that increased again.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, yeah. While you're talking about your customers, You posted some really cool story, like a testimonial about what one individual's wife had early onset or late stage dementia or something. I mean, what was with that one? That was amazing.
Um,
What you said your customer told you.
yeah, I mean, I can tell so many. I mean, I don't have hundreds and hundreds of customers just yet, right? Because like
You've
we're
only
kind
been,
of new and
yeah,
just
you're
word of
new.
mouth spreading this.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but I mean, with the few customers we do have, I've got so many just stories and testimonies. I can talk for hours on them, and we've got just, I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, every person I get back in touch with, I'm thinking, oh, they probably just like the machines in the corner collecting dust, and I'm like, why? I wonder what haven't they? I've heard back from these people, but when I call them up or send them a message, like, oh no, what? I use the machine every day. I can't do without it. It's doing great. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And they'll tell me some story about how arthritis pain's gone away, or they usually all have a story for me, and it's
So,
it's all it's super
uh
cool hearing that kind of stuff.
so is there an age range where it's
So
beneficial? Like, with C60, it seems like the older folks have a much more pronounced reaction, or do you find that the same way with Brown's gas? Or is it across the plane, like, like young
um,
people working out, faster recovery from muscle soreness? I know that's one of the effects. And what are you finding?
yeah, I mean, I really my what I say it every age and can benefit. I mean, it's incredible, um, and even I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think what story to tell you because there's so many. Because Um, I mean, I used it on my son a few times. He's 7 years old, and he'll tell you, he's like, when someone comes over and we're talking, and the subject comes up about the hydrogen, the H2 Genesys machine. He's like, that machine saved my life 3 times. That's what he'll tell people. Um, one in a case where he was dehydrated, you know, playing at a party all day, not drinking enough, come home, falls asleep really fast, wakes up the next morning stumbling. Oh, like my chest hurts, I can't breathe, and his heart was pounding. He just fainted in my arms, and and my partner's like, he's dehydrated. We haven't got him a drink, so instantly hooked him up, and he came back within 30 seconds, and he's like, oh, I feel better now, the pain is gone. And I took it off, the cannula off of him, because I was tangled up. I put it on so fast. He's like, oh, the pain is back, it hurts, put it back on, put it back on. And so we put it back on, and just in seconds he's feeling better again. And then
Ah,
while that was going on, we got him got some electrolytes back in him, and it worked. But I mean, he's like, man, daddy, that really worked, that helped.
yeah,
I'm like, oh my god,
there
like
you
that
go.
was both scary and
Yeah,
at
I
the
kind of.
same time like an unbelievable, like,
Oh,
firsthand experience
yeah.
of how it's good for emergencies.
Yeah.
Another case, he burned his finger, got a blister, crying because he's got this big burn, swollen up blister on his finger. Wouldn't let me put any cream on it to help stop the burning. I said, well, let's bag it and put some hydrogen on it. He's like, okay, because nothing needs to be touching it, right? Within he's complaining about this for like an hour or two before, I said, well, okay, let's put the hydrogen on it. So we bag it in some hydrogen, turn it on, and within 10 minutes it's gone, and it hadn't hurt since.
Wow, that's amazing.
So the pain of burns, it'll just take away. Not just that, but a sting. He got a really bad bug sting, or it could be a bee sting or something like that. It's swelling up. We bag it, put hydrogen on it, it goes away within 10 minutes and doesn't come back. I mean, his burn did not hurt again. He had no other. Um, I mean, it's hard to say 100% sure, but when you see something working again and again,
Yeah.
it's like it's hard not to draw the conclusion that, hey, it's having an effect.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
in my case, I sprained my ankle. Um, I twisted it as I was sitting down my desk. I said, "Oh, it hurts, man. I'll just wait. It'll just go away." But when I finally went to get up, I almost fell on the floor because it hurt so bad. And as soon as I tried to walk on it, I'm like almost collapsed. And I looked down, and my whole ankle is swollen up. My foot's red. And I'm like, "Oh man, I can barely hop to the bed." And even if someone touched the bed, I would almost scream in pain because something with the nerves probably happened as well. But it was painful. Um, I asked my son to bring me a bag so I can bag it up with hydrogen on it. I did that. I couldn't move it for. I mean, it's swollen up. I took pictures as well. I couldn't move it for, I don't know, for the longest time, but I slept with it kind of raised up with the bag and the hydrogen being pumped into it all night. and every couple hours I wake up, I try to move my toes, and there's a little bit more movement. By the time morning came around, 90% better. I could walk on it with a small limp, and by the end of the day, it was near gone. I mean, I thought I was not going to be able to walk for a week. It hurt that bad, and it was that swollen.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I actually I had an oil burn cooking once, and on my hand and my wrist, and it was, it hurt like hell. And I did the same thing. I bagged it up and plugged it into my Jenny, and it didn't help heal it, but the pain went away, and it never hurt again
Right,
after
yeah.
that. And all I had to do was just keep it clean and stuff, and it healed. But it was weird where it just like it was the pain. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I thought it like maybe because of the oxygen infusion that it helped him speed up healing, but that didn't happen. But the pain was gone. But I did want to ask a follow
Right.
up
In
question.
most cases, that's the most important, the pain.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The follow up question though is I just realized when you said if the dosage is 3 times a day, it's okay to skip a day, but how long should a session be when you say 3 times a day or twice a day? Like what's total number of
And
hours
that
that you feel is good and you're not like, diminishing return, like 6 hours a day, 3 hours a day? What
I
do you what?
think I think you're probably good with you're probably near maxing out at 3 hours a day.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay. I get like 6 to 8.
And any more than that, or any more than that, well, yeah, same here. I mean, like I said, I like breathing it all night.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
plug
plugged
in
in
when I
right
go to
now.
lay
Yeah.
down for bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll go 8 hours at night, and just because I feel I sleep better, more relaxed in the
Uh,
dreams, you know.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I've got one. I got one next
so
to my desk. I got one next to my couch. I don't sleep with it though, but let's talk about that. Um, so okay, so 3 hours a day is good. Do more, I guess is more better. And is that a maybe, or is that like it doesn't hurt? It doesn't hurt, right? That's clear, right?
well, I mean, like I mentioned with my MMA fighter friend, he noticed that his energy, strength, endurance decreased when he outdid it or overdid
Ah,
it.
okay, okay.
So so and that may be more than 3 hours. I don't think he was doing it more than 3 hours, but it really depends what your goals are.
Right.
Um,
So that could be
Maybe the first thing to go is energy and you're more lethargic. But yeah, another friend of mine who's a cyclist, tennis player, he used to be a tennis pro. He's after if he does it in the morning, too much in the morning, he wants to relax more. He loses some of his energy or oomph, to get going.
oh,
Um,
okay. That might
so, but
explain
it
my
like
yeah. Okay.
in my
Go ahead.
but in my case at night, I mean, I like sleeping with it because I like to. It helped me relax. I find, and I just go deeper into sleep as well as
Yeah.
the dreams, like I mentioned. Oh, another thing I noticed with the water, if I drink the water, I go deeper into sleep. Um, but if I just breathe it, my mind is more active in dream world.
Hmm. I'm gonna try that. Yeah, that might
But
explain my
I definitely
sloth-like
noticed
behavior. Maybe I do too
your
much.
sloth-like behavior.
Yeah, I'm a desk jockey. What can I say? Oh, no, that's interesting. Okay, so lots of different ways to approach this that I didn't think about before, but cool, cool. Okay, so we talked about diminishing returns. We talked about duty cycles. Let's talk about like, I think it was somebody in the chat was talking, or several people in the chat said that they run it all night long. And so doing that, there's issues that came up with the machine gets hot, the machine runs out of water, and that sort of thing. And there's a diminishing return issue. So what's your general thought on hooking up the generator all night long, either through and then I think some other folks are hooking it up to their CPAP machines, which is a totally
Hmm.
cool idea. I mean, so let's talk about running it all night long, either through the cannula or running it through a CPAP. I mean, what's your thoughts on doing that with Brown's gas?
Yeah, I think doing that with the CPAP is dangerous. I know one guy that I think with the CPAP they still use like a humidifier bottle, like the little bubblers we use to humidify the air that goes into the mask. But if you're rebreathing the HHO, the hydrogen gas, that just concentrates it more, and I think you're just asking for trouble, upping the concentration to a flammable level, so if there is a static spark anywhere, it could, make it explode. So I don't think that's a safe thing to do. The cannula is a much more safer way to breathe it because it diffuses into the air in most cases below 4%, which is not flammable. Using a mask, I would definitely never recommend doing such. And you can get most of the benefits by I mean, in some, in the case where this person was using a CPAP machine, um, taking the hydrogen water, but hydrogen bubbled water, putting that in the humidifier, and just breathing it through that. You notice huge effects just doing it that way.
Oh, okay. All right, and then running it all night long with the heat and running out of water and it turns into water vapor. Would you recommend running it all night long, or maybe just setting it on a timer and maybe like the first 4 hours of your sleep or something like that? But like all night long, is that a good idea?
You, it's not a bad idea.
Oh, okay.
I won't say it's a good idea, but I mean, I do it myself.
Oh, okay.
But I definitely check my water level before I go to bed. I mean, it's like just standard routine. Like you brush your teeth, I'll check the water level before I turn it on, making sure it's not gonna, run dry, or in case like any automatic shut off, if I know some units have, don't work all the time. So just making sure there's enough water in there, and sometimes at night I may have enough after an hour or two, and just reach over, turn it off, and pull the cannula off.
All right.
There's definitely nothing bad, I think, about running it all night. Just check your water level. Oh, and I also found that you do not want to run it on 100%
Right.
all night.
Right.
That'll run down your water 10 times faster because it'll heat up and just start spitting out water vapor. So rather than electrolyzing the water into hydrogen and oxygen, it'll be just spitting out water vapor, which it'll fill up your cannula hose with lots of water, and you'll get water up the nose, and it's just not the best use of water, and you're kind of defeating the purpose. Plus, I find even just at 40% power on most of these systems, it produces enough hydrogen to do everything you need. I mean,
Okay.
you're kind of maxed out. Your body quickly saturates with hydrogen.
Okay.
So I'd say for the normal person, no more than 40% if you're going to sleep with it. And even in most cases, you can even go down to 20 and it'd still be fine. But so somewhere between 20 and 40, if you're going to use it overnight, you're getting
Okay.
more than enough hydrogen, if that's what your goal is, without heating up the machine and getting any extra water vapor
Okay.
thrown in.
Oh, that's good. Good tip from Ben. Overnight, 20% and use your cannula and not CPAP. There you go. Okay, so that's those. How about
Yeah, and
frequencies? Go
it's
ahead. Sorry.
also, I'll say one more thing with regards to the quantity or what power duty cycle to run per person. I mean, you can ideally you want to be able to calculate, okay, what is your lung capacity, how many breaths you take a minute, and you can breathe and calculate, okay, how much gas is it putting out, and calculate that, okay, your average breath or hydrogen intake is going to be below 4%, right?
Right.
But that's good to certain in some people out there, you can just just give very general guidelines that, okay, between 20 and 40%, you're good for most people. But I also say monitor your own body, and you can tell what works. I mean, you don't want to use it you don't want to put it on 100% just because you can. I mean, like, again, we talked about diminishing returns, heating up the machine and throwing out water vapor. You don't need to run it on 100% power duty cycle to get 100% of the benefits.
Okay.
So if you usually after, I'd say a few weeks or a month or so of using the machines, most of our clients get into a routine of what they feel is most beneficial for themselves.
Oh, okay. All
But I
right.
mean, also keeping in mind,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes
what is a flammable dose, right?
right. Yeah.
But I mean, I can tell you too
Key
that
point.
I've breathed lots of flammable doses.
Yeah.
I've breathed lots of flammable doses. I just push it, and I know I got other friends that tell them don't do this, and they do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're guys. What can we say? Cool. No, that's great. Okay, great advice. All right. So, the
So
thing about. Oh,
one
go
of the
ahead.
things before you
Yeah, I want to just.
one of the things, we'll go back to the machine and some of the one of the features of the machine that I kind of really like, which also help reduce the cost, and I think makes it safer. Um, it's not apparent, but it's on the website written on there, is that other machines out there, they're very sealed, and they rely sealed, so that if a hose gets crimped or pressure builds up, if your electronic pressure sensor does not trigger and cut off the generator, you're in trouble. You're looking at a bomb, explosion there.
Okay.
That's all under super high pressure. Um, so the tower, the expansion tower, scrubber, whatever you want to call it, I call it like a
This guy.
condensing chamber,
Uh-huh.
because if your water vapor does come out, hotter, it gives it a chance to cool and condense onto the sides and drip back down, so you're not losing any. That makes the machine run more efficient, less needs to top it off with any sodium hydroxide if any ever does escape. But that white cap on the top of the clear cylinder, if you're looking at the picture, it's only held on by Teflon tape. That whole unit is held on by Teflon tape, no glue whatsoever, no PVC glue. I mean, first of all, PVC glue is like toxic and dangerous and doesn't smell good, and it would take forever for the smell to go away. But just with between 5 and 10 wraps of Teflon tape, that's all held together. So if a seal is ever bad or needs to be redone or it does get loose, or you need to take it apart and clean it, you could just by hand undo it. But the biggest advantage of just using Teflon tape to secure the joints there is that in any kind of overpressure event, and I had a lot of these early on with my first experiments, um, the top would just pop off.
Pops off, right?
I mean, if you can, and that's how we
Yeah.
felt. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened to me once is my maid took my distilled, because I got lots of distilled water jugs everywhere, and sometimes I guess my maid would use them to fill them up with like soap or other washing detergent, right? So
Oh,
they all look the same, all these gallon containers. So she made up some soap mix, and I thought it was, oh, here's what, I don't know why I left this distilled water container out here. I'll bring it back and just use it up. So I put that into my
oh man,
my generator.
I can hear where
I
this is
go to
going.
I go to yeah, I go to turn off the lights, and also I pop. I go. I can't make the sound, but it's like a low like thud pop pop,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh no, what happened? So I turn on the light, and my bubbles are all over the place. but
Well,
but
there goes that machine.
in but it in well, I mean I rinsed it out and washed it out good a few times, and with regular water, then distilled water, and then it's
There
fine
you
after
go.
that.
Okay. Okay.
But the point is that if if you do make a mistake to put any kind of input something like that in there, an electronic shut off would not have time, I don't think, to react, because it was so fast. And I mean, I've also had instances where like the chair was on top of the hose, the cannula, and you can build up pressure like that,
Uh-huh.
and the top just pops off.
Okay.
So, and also when it foams up early on, the foam will create a pressure and block the low passageways, and then the top will pop off. And then if the foam does happen, you can just, pop off the top with your hand and scoop it out with a spoon and just throw it out to the side. It won't contaminate your bubblers so much either. But and that's how we fill it up. Also, and that's what also helps you know that the top white cap is at a good we call it pressure or tightness, is if you can easily take it on and put it back off. It's just snug enough where you can easily take it off and put it back on. And so we just pop the cap off with our hand, pour in the water, and push the cap back on. It's just like pushed just tight enough you can put it on with your hand. So that, in my opinion, is like you don't need any electronic gizmos, sensors, or all that extra electronics that goes into there that could also potentially fail. I mean, this is like a fail-proof safety system where the top just pops off. You're not going to have any of this exploding.
Yeah, okay. No, that's a good feature then. So that's how you get water in there. Okay. All right, so we're over the hour mark, so I kind of wanted to just to touch on a couple of real important points, and then maybe that other stuff we could talk about in a follow up or something, because I'm just worried about
Mm-hmm.
time. But I did want to talk about the
Right.
because some of the questions, because that's the thing, nobody really knows like what do you set the frequency to, what are the options, what's good, what's bad. I mean, what are your thoughts about like how do you use the frequency generator on these machines, because it seems kind of out of place, right? It's a machine that generates gas, and a really extremely healthy beneficial gas. But so what's up with the frequency thing, and how do you use it? What are your thoughts?
I mean, the frequency generator, I mean, the little control panel that controls the duty cycle, I mean, it comes, it's hard to find them without a frequency generator, on the, included on the panel. So it's kind of like a bonus that you don't need. So it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt to include it. But some people that believe that the frequencies do impart extra healing effects or any additional benefits, I mean, it's there to be used. I do believe in frequency medicine, um, in the benefits of using frequencies, but not necessarily in the form of this generator, because I think the frequencies where they're used and generated to help electrolyze the water, um, it's so far removed from the body. I'm not sure if those frequencies are imparted into the molecules or electrons or hydrogen, oxygen in a way that can be passed from them into the body. In most frequency medicine, the frequencies are used more directly, on the body or in the body, not so far removed from the body. So I'm not sure they really have an effect.
Yeah, because I actually asked that question to one of the other manufacturers, and it was like, well, what do you do with it? And it's because I was thinking if I play, because when I tinker with a bunch of things, and one of the things is you play the frequency to water, and the water holds memory, right? But
Mhm.
if you're playing frequency
Right.
to water that converts to a gas, the you sublimate it, it turns into a gas. Does the gas carry the same frequency as the water itself?
Right. Exactly. My
You've rearranged the
the
molecules, right? And would that change the memory? And whoa, that's a huge woo woo,
right.
thing there. So I'm more impartial to put a
Yeah, that's
speaker
nothing.
to the container and actually, play frequency to the container that's of water being
Right.
bubbled,
Right. I think that would.
right? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would think that would have a more direct impact or effect than choosing a frequency that the water is electrolyzed at. Um, so I'm not saying that it does not have an effect. It may have an effect, but in my, knowing physics and frequencies and just in general, my opinion is that I don't think it imparts too much of an effect in where the water is electrolyzed at a certain frequency.
Right. Okay.
But
Yeah.
like we mentioned briefly before, what I do think would enhance the effect of we didn't get into the negative ions so much in the what makes the Brown's gas special, the extra electrons and ions that it creates, the negative ions. And those negative ions, or electrically expanded water or plasma, or whatever you want to call it, that's breathed into the body or with water drank into the body through water, but those electrical charged particles, ions, electrons in the body would react more with the pulsed electromagnetic fields, the PEMF type of devices, to help move those around. So in some of my latest experiments, what I've been doing is breathing the gas, drinking the water, and using the PMF device at the same time. And I'm thinking that they enhance each other's effects.
Yeah, because okay, so that was going to be my one of my like wrap up questions is like, what are you working on next? And I know that you're working on a PMF, and so we had a really interesting pre interview chat about this. So you could, if I'm sorry to make you repeat yourself, but let's talk about that because
Mhm.
the idea of taking in hydrogen plus frequency, and then you were mentioning that you're finding that the PEMF with frequency, like frequency specific PEMF as opposed to just PEMF, right? Enhances the
Right.
distribution of the electrically expanded water. One of the, by the way, for folks that are not up to date on what Brown's gas is as opposed to hydrogen. Just real quick, is that hydrogen generators have basically a positive and negative bar in water, and as the electricity passes between it, hydrogen pops off one side and oxygen pops off the other. However, with Brown's gas, there's no filter in between the two cathode, and it produces a third gas called that's basically free electrons. Uh, Creates something called electrically expanded water. For those of you that want to learn more about it, there's actually a pretty interesting paper called Plasma Orbital Expansion of Electrons in Water that was written about this effect, but that's what makes Brown's gas very unique. And so, Ben, can you kind of explain what you're finding? Because I know you're working on a PMF device of your own, right? Your
Mhm.
entrepreneurial spirit
Right, right.
moving forward. So how are you, what's your thinking in terms of using PMF to enhance the intake of Brown's gas? What's your thoughts?
Um, I mean, going back to my training and just engineering, electrical engineering and physics. I mean, it's pretty basic type of science. I mean, generators and motors, they all use electromagnetic fields created by electricity and wires wound up in coils to produce magnetic fields. And if what's happening in the creation of Brown's gas, it energizes the water. It pumps these electrons into water, and as you can see in that picture you're showing up there, that little diagram that you're showing right now, I couldn't find anything like that out there, so I actually made that myself. But it kind of demonstrates that what makes Brown's gas unique is it seems like right before the water atom is, or a molecule is split into oxygen and hydrogen, it it's got to pump more electrons into there. And there's a point where it seems to become a gas, and if it doesn't completely get charged up or enough energy, electrical energy pumped into there, it kind of is a pre-state, which is this plasma state, and it'll escape as a gas before it gets filled with enough electricity to rip apart the hydrogen and oxygen. So you've got this electrically charged water molecule with 2 extra electrons also leaving the water solution as a gas. And so this carries an additional 2 electrons, which is stable but semi-stable. It easily gives up these electrons in the process, gives up energy. Like I said in this document right here, it shows that up to 5% of the gas that comes out of Brown's gas generators could be in the form of this special ionized electrically charged water state. So we can get lots of good information, videos, and papers out there just on the study of negative ions and how they positively affect people's health, well-being in so many ways. I mean, that's a study all of itself. Tons of papers written on the subject. So just for the fact that Brown's gas does produce negative ions, that alone is enough to create a lot of the healing effects that we're seeing and experiencing. And some of the effects we're experiencing, the same effects are noted in studies on negative ions in the experiments they've used on people in studies. Report a lot of the same effects. So that's all interesting. But I'm getting back to the PMF, and the way the PMF devices work, the pulsed electromagnetic frequencies, you've got a coil, and you send pulses of electricity through there, and so the pulses of electricity, just the fact of electricity moving, it creates a magnetic field. So when you wind the wire in the form of a circle or a coil, it kind of concentrates the magnetic field into the center of the coil. And when you pulse that, for example, in a motor or generator, it's those pulses of magnetic fields that move the electrons in the copper wires. So the whole idea is that those magnetic fields are moving electrons. They're moving. That's the key. They're moving electrons. So if you're putting more electrons into the body, more negative ions in the body, you've got more, say, ions or substances or molecules to be interacting with the pulsed magnetics that are being pushed into you through these PMF coils and devices. Which, I mean, it's really a simple and basic principle, and it's hard to find fault in this not being beneficial, to have these both synergistically working together. I mean,
Yeah.
magnetic fields, they move electrons. Put more electrons into your system, you're going to get more movement. More
Right.
movement, you got more nutrients being moved around, and things happening, and more energy in there. More in that, in general, just means your system is working more efficiently and better.
Oh, I mean, that is some, because I'm really into bioelectrical magnetics. So That's really fascinating because I'd never thought about that. But you're right. You're literally with Brown's gas, bubbled water, or inhalation. You are taking in electrons, and then with the water especially,
Right.
you've got electrically expanded water, water ionized to a different state, different configuration of the water molecule. And so, if you pulse yourself right when you do this, are you essentially enabling a greater infusion of those ions into your tissues than would normally have happened just through chemical processes and electron transfer, like in molecules and things like that? Is that what you're thinking? Or is it just
Yeah,
moving them
just
around, like, getting just greater
well,
saturation?
moving them around. I mean, that's
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Well, all that. I mean, you're creating greater You have to be creating more movement. I mean, that's the whole idea. You're creating more movement with the magnetics,
Right. Okay.
more saturation. It's kind of it's impossible for it to not happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what generates electricity. You've
Okay.
got electrons in a copper wire. You move a magnetic field across this copper wire, and the electrons move.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
and everything in your body is about, your whole nervous system is based on electrons and sending electrical signals back and forth. In your cells, I mean, you can measure a voltage on the outside, between the outside, a potential difference between the outside and inside of the cell. So your body is an electrical machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So hey, we're getting to the point where I don't want to rush you off, but the interview's getting long, and I know
You start closing out
people's
here, yeah.
general tolerance is like around an hour max, and we've gone over it, but it's so
Mine is
fascinating
10
to me.
minutes.
Yeah, yeah. But I do. What Here's the thing. This is what I was thinking that would be really cool to share with everybody. Is I went back, and a year ago, I guess I did this Brown's gas product review comparison thing, and this is the spreadsheet. And so now I just want the audience to
Right.
know I haven't had a chance to sit down with Ben and get the answers to all of these different features of the different machines. But back a year ago, I compared the H2 Life Brown's gas generator to the Hydro Genie and to the AquaCure AC50. But I'd like to compare the H2 Genesys and put it on the spreadsheet. So and then share that with everybody so everybody can kind of get an idea. For those of you that are interested in getting a Brown's gas generator, I just wanted to share with you, the different features. So Ben, are you cool with you like we'll fill this thing out and then put it as a link in the video
Yeah, we can
description?
definitely get that.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that
we can definitely get that filled in. That'd be interesting
okay.
to do.
And then so I guess one of the most important things I just want to point out is affordability. Is in the very beginning, it was you ran into the same problem I did, which was I was really on the fence until I did the research because it was not a cheap price to entry point, to get into Brown's gas. But I just wanted to point out to everybody that the retail on an H2 Genesys is $14.95, and so and in terms of volume and production capabilities, it's only really comparable to the AquaCure AC50, and you can see where the price point is literally $1,000 less for roughly, I'm not picking sides, but roughly the same machine. So it's a huge incredible thing that Ben has brought to market for consumers out there who don't have the wherewithal to afford a $2,500 machine. Now there's an option for you, and I just really want to point that out. What Ben and I will do is we'll
Yeah,
compare this out so you can see what the differences are. And then we can kind of, that way you can, if you're shopping for one, you can kind of see that it's quite a remarkable opportunity to experience brown gas. Did you have any comments that you wanted to?
yeah, regarding the price, yeah, it was challenging, but I think we found a way. It took a lot of thinking, experimenting, but I think we found a way to definitely either maintain safety, increase safety, and decrease cost at the same time. Because like you said, the idea is to make it affordable. I know so many people that need this and want this and can't afford it.
Yeah.
Even this price is a lot for some.
Right.
But I mean, it's great hearing so many good stories back from clients and people's like, and my clients say everyone needs one of these. That's what they come back and tell me.
Oh
Say what
yeah.
we can do to get it cheaper. But I was gonna mention to you as well that maybe by the time you get this posted, and if you put this on YouTube, I can get you a coupon so that anyone looking at this video or watching it, that you can forward onto your followers, will provide a additional discount.
Okay,
So
no, that's great. Well,
even
thank you
better what
for
you're saying here.
everybody that's going to get one.
So
Thank
we'll
you for that from
get that
them.
worked out.
But yeah, this is great. So definitely want to make sure. Now, there's a couple of things we didn't really get to dive into, and I'm sorry. Just try to talk as we got so many things to talk about. But I think that what's
Oh
really
yeah, we can go on for
important.
hours and hours, but this is.
Oh, and I know you and I could go because we didn't even get into that deep. I mean, we could really go for it. But okay, so for brevity's sake, okay, what we'll do is we'll complete the vendor comparison matrix. For those out there shopping, Ben's going to give us a coupon code to get an H2 Genesys. This is his store. And then the other thing is, where can people find you? So the website, there'll be a link in the video description. It's basically H2Biohacker.com. That's how you find the website. That's how you find. Is there any other way to reach out? Oh yeah, there's the Telegram. So
Yeah,
there's the HHO.
H2Genesys.com.
HHO. So here's the Telegram. Whoop, just missed it. Go ahead. This is the group that Ben started, and so we're in here chatting away. So come on to Telegram and join us, right? And if you and ask away. I mean, if I can answer the question or Ben, that's where you can get answers. Is that kind of where you, or do you do customer service through there, or you do it kind of through this chat thingy, whatever this thing?
If you go to the contact us or about,
Yeah. Okay.
the top menu on about, well, that chat is kind of iffy on the bottom there, but
Okay. All right.
the best way is contact us, and there's a link to Telegram me directly. Until
Okay,
we're
cool.
overwhelmed with clients and I need to hire other support, I'm handling all the support and questions through both Telegram chat or through email, and there's a phone line. People can even call. I'm available to
Sure.
talk by voice. So
Awesome.
I'll probably remove that at one day once we get bombarded with
Yeah.
calls and clients. But for now, I've got time, right?
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Another thing to note is that we've got a USA location and a Costa Rica location. I'm currently located in Costa Rica, so I'm got a lot of clients locally that have been buying and loving the machine, and I've got friends and family back in the US that I've trained and been making these, and we build them and ship them from the US to Canada and the rest of the world in the US, and I mainly do the Costa Rica building and servicing the market, where I am, but
Yeah.
we can ship anywhere really.
Sweet. Sweet. All right. So where to find Ben is at h2biohacker.com. You can call him, you can email him, you could maybe iffy chat with him, and you can go on to Telegram and join the
There's like
discussion.
multiple ways.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to ask other people who use Brown's gas generators, that's Telegram. If you want to know more about the H2 Genesys, that's Ben. Either way, that's how you find out more about it. And we'll put it all together, put the links in there, put the links over in the Telegram chat group, and do it there. There's so many other topics I want to chat about, but we're just kind of a little short on time. But that's it. So Ben, any parting words of wisdom?
No, that's it. Yeah, sorry it went so long, but there's so much we can get into. But I think we've got some good information out there, and hopefully other people would, will inspire other people to take advantage of it. Because, like I say, all my clients say, Ben, everyone needs this. I mean, see so many people benefiting from it. I've got so many more stories I want to share with you about that, but yeah, a later day.
Yeah, so we'll do that because as you were talking, I found your testimonial page, so people can go here and actually
There's a
hear
lot
the
of good information.
testimonials, read the testimonials, and then I didn't even get into this one. I really want to talk about this, but for another day. But here's all the scientific studies about the condition in our world right now that you cannot name unless you get your YouTube video flagged. But you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But here's the scientific studies about the different types of conditions, how hydrogen can help, which is part of Brown's gas. But even this other thing here, I'm not going to say out loud, is also as an FYI. I posted a video in the HHO chat about a scientist
Right,
who was
exactly.
saying that they're now using Brown's gas for the it that cannot be named. Okay, so really, really amazing stuff about Brown's gas. Great product on the market. Ben, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I think everyone's going to get a real good kick out of the conversation.
Nothing generally about the website, and then close it up. But the website, I mean, I've spent a long time just reading everything I can find out there on Brown's gas and hydrogen out there on the internet, and I've done my best job to condense and assimilate everything down to what we've got on this website. So I think almost you can get the best overall information all condensed down onto this website.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at this, and it's pretty amazing. So if you want to learn more about Brown's gas in general, this is an incredible reference. So thank you very much, and really appreciate it. Thank you, and really just want to say appreciate your time. Appreciate everybody dialing in and listening. So aloha.